Support the Amigos podcast and keep the Amiga goodness flowing for just $1 a month. Visit our page at patreon.com/AmigosPodcast.
Amiga, the first personal computer that gives you a creative edge.
Amigos, the podcast about everything Amiga. Amigos is a proud member of the Throwback Network, your home for quality retro podcasts. And now, here are your hosts, Aaron Dowdy and John Bodovkar Schaller.
Hi, and welcome to the Amigos. I'm John.
And I'm Aaron.
And we're joined this week by Sven from Cinemaware. Hi, Sven.
Hi. Good to hear again. It was so long time no hear.
Yeah. So it's a secret that nobody knows about that we've actually pre-recorded next week's episode, because next week is Thanksgiving here in the United States, with an interview with Sven, where he talks about all of the history of Cinemaware, what he does at the company, their upcoming releases, their future projects. So if you're at all interested in Cinemaware, and I have a feeling that most of our listeners are, make sure you stay tuned for next week's episode for that.
It's great.
But today we're talking. But today we're talking about Turrican II. Turrican II, a great side-scrolling platformer shooter. But before we do, we've got a couple things to go over here. There's one video that I wanted to share that I thought was great. It actually comes from ABC. Now, when you think ABC, Aaron, what do you think?
The alphabet.
The alphabet. When you think ABC TV, what do you think?
The network. The
network, right? Well, ABC is also the Australian broadcasting network.
Oh, okay. Makes sense.
And so they have a series called A Good Game. And they highlighted the Amiga as part of the Amiga's 30th anniversary, and it is well done. I mean, it's slickly produced. It is not like anything you'd see on network TV in the United States, because the Amiga coverage here for the 30th anniversary was nil. So check that out. I'll put a link to that.
Is this a YouTube video?
Yeah, it's a YouTube video. I had to look through several versions to find it, because the Australian Broadcasting Corporation doesn't want anybody outside Australia seeing it. But there was somebody that found some way to let us watch it.
It's odd to me. I knew the Amiga was obviously big in Europe, but it never occurred to me that it was a big deal in Australia. So that's kind of neat.
Well, directory Opus.
Now I know.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Now that we've been doing this show, we realize. Now on German TV, Sven, what is the big network in Germany? The big TV network?
The big TV networks, we have not so much networks. It's a little bit different to the United States. We have official networks that were owned in the history more from the government. That was ARD, ZDF, and the third programs. So that were local programs for the counties. And then in the 80s, there were the private televisions like RTL, Pro7, and now it's RTL2, Vox. So we have much. Then the most. Popular is RTL. That is RTL.
Now, how much Amiga coverage for the 30th anniversary was there on RTL?
That is the funny thing. I don't watch this TV things anymore. I watch my series on Netflix or pay TV.
Yeah, that's happening a lot over here too.
Yeah. I don't care, because they show on RTL they run show like. Any hillbilly looks for a woman and something like this. It's really strange watching TV right now, so I don't watch it anymore. But I think there was not so much coverage in television. There was maybe one or two news and some magazines covered it, but in TV I didn't remember.
Yeah, I was just really impressed that this thing was produced for the ABC. So
that's awesome.
I'll put that in the show notes. We've also got this person. His name is Kolbjorn Barman, I believe.
Say that 10 times fast.
Yeah, I believe that he is. I don't want to make any guesses on where he's from, but I'm guessing it's somewhere in Scandinavia. He posted on our Facebook page. Actually, I don't even want to say that because I think there's one of the countries that we think is Scandinavian that's not, and they get really upset when we say that. So we'll just say he's from Europe.
He's from Earth.
Yeah, he's from Earth. He posted a very informative piece on our Facebook page about directory Opus.
Oh, yes, I saw that.
He really answered a lot of the questions that I had, and there's a couple of links that he put about current versions of directory Opus that are now open source. He posted a link to a SourceForge page and this site called powertopeople.org that is keeping the development going. So if you're out there interested in directory Opus, check out that. Read the whole thing on the Facebook page. We are it's facebook.com/Amigos podcast. Give us a like while you're there too, and check out that post.
That was very informative. And who knew all that the crazy antics of directory Opus and the people getting together, the free versions and all this stuff. I never would have guessed any of that.
Yeah, it's awesome. Dreamcatcher, our favorite gangster from Manchester, writes in, and he says, I had no idea there was such a raging debate concerning the correct pronunciation of Galaga until now.
Oh, yes.
The way I've always squared it away in my head is that the Aussies pronounce it Galaga in honor of Alf Stewart's catchphrase, "You great Gala," as in the rose-breasted cockatoo.
No idea.
And the rest of the world pronounces it correctly. I have this printed on a handy wallet-size reference card, which I carry with me at all times. It works for me.
Smart boy. It's Galaga, by the way.
How do you pronounce that game, Sven?
Galaga.
Bam.
Just Galaga.
Yeah. Sven gets it.
Yeah. Dreamcatcher, he wrote in on the English, the EAB board, the English Amiga board. Roland in the Caves, one of our frequent contributors, he posted on the blog when we reviewed Lotus II. He said, "This is a great racing game. I remember playing this a hell of a lot, along with a game called Jaguar XJ220 and Crazy Cars 3.
They're often compared.
It was only when I saw F-Zero on the SNES and Mode 7 won me over that I took a step back from playing racing games on my Amiga. Even the A1200 struggled with Mode 7 type scaling as far as I can remember, which is a shame." And I will say that's correct. You know, the Super Nintendo did a few things really well, and one of the things it did well was being able to scale and rotate sprites on screen. It was really fantastic.
Sort of its calling card.
Yeah,
right?
It really was. It was the main thing that differentiated it from the Genesis. Did you play a lot of Super Nintendo growing up, Sven?
Oh yes. It was. I have a really. I keep it short. A really funny story. When my parents went to for the first time on vacation without me, and when I was I think 16 years old, and they leave me 200 marks. So, which was similar to $250 at this time for 2 weeks. So I can get lunch and everything.
I can already see where this is going.
Yeah. And then there was the release of Mortal Kombat 2. And it cost $150.
Holy cow.
My goodness.
And
Is that
I bought
imported?
it, and I the rest of the 2 weeks it was really interesting to eat the whole time cornflakes and other stuff.
Now, can we talk about how did Mortal Kombat 2 cost $150?
Was that? Did you import it, or what was it? What's the scoop on that?
It was in dollars. It must be expensive because the dollar was very very high at this time. I think it has to be $170 or something like this.
Because I think they were most of the Super Nintendo games back in those days were reaching by what 70 bucks.
Just maybe a mistake. The dollar course was not so similar to the Deutschmark course at this time. I think it should be $110 to $20. It was $150 Deutschmark. It was very expensive even for a Super Nintendo game. It was one of the most expensive games. Normally they cost about 100 Deutschmark or a little bit more lower, like 90, 80 marks. But Mortal Kombat was very expensive. I don't know why.
Now, here's the big question, Sven, is when you got it home and you realized that they'd censored the heck out of it. How were you disappointed after you spent all that money?
I don't know, because Mortal Kombat 2 was...
Yeah, Mortal Kombat 2 wasn't censored.
They took on that
one, yeah.
Oh, okay.
One was censored.
You can tell who didn't have a Super Nintendo in this group.
You were already in your mid-30s when
shut up. Ignore him.
It was so awesome. I said, okay, I bought a Sega Mega Drive and it got all the blood inside. And after this, Nintendo makes the decision, okay, it's not good, it sells more with blood. Yes.
Right. Put it in.
Yeah, so short answer, yes, I played Super Nintendo.
Well, as always, if you want to leave us some feedback, you can do it in myriad ways. You can either leave us a comment on our blog at amigospodcast.com or drop us a line on our Facebook page. We've also got a really active thread on the English Amiga board, and so you can contact us there too, or even at the Lemon Amiga forums. We have some activity there.
We get around.
Yeah. So it's time to move on to the game. Turrican II. Turrican II: The Final Fight is the full name.
The incorrect name. That was not true.
It's the second game of the Turrican series, and why don't you explain that, Aaron?
Well, it wasn't the final fight, I can tell you that. They went on to have of course they had Super Turrican, they had Turrican 3, there was a multitude of Turricans.
So it's about as final as Final Fantasy.
Yes.
So this game was developed by Factor 5 and was released in 1991. It was finished before the C64 version, but apparently the C64 version was the original design.
Have you played that version?
No, I haven't.
Sven, have you played the C64 version of this?
Yeah, sure, for sure.
How'd it go? How similar were they?
I think it was quite similar, but the Amiga was better. I played first the C64 version and then the Amiga version, and gets stuck. Was into the Amiga version more.
Yeah, I mean, it was really an expansive game. I can't imagine how well it would go on the 64. It's big. There's a lot going
really
on.
Big, but that was really good. The guys from I think at Turrican II there was still Rainbow Arts. He developed, and it was a German.
It was published by Factor 5.
I think it's they moved into Factor 5 later, so the Factor 5 is still active. But they make smaller games. But at this time, it was in Germany, developed by Rainbow Arts, and they were really, really great developers. They really get every single bit and byte out of the Commodore 64 to make a really great game for this, and also for the Amiga. Yeah.
Would you say that Rainbow Arts was the prominent developer at this time in Germany? In the early 90s?
Yeah. Really. It's I don't remember another developer at this time that was so popular like Rainbow Arts. There were heroes. I think there were Amiga conventions in Cologne, where I meet Chris Hülsberg, and I get autographs, and it's so awesome. There were heroes of my time, and yeah.
Awesome. It was ported to the CD-TV, Atari ST, the Amstrad, and the ZX Spectrum, and later for DOS. So it really got around. The coder, and you're going to have to help me, Sven. Holger Schmidt, is that right?
Yeah, Holger Schmidt. Yeah. Yeah.
And Chris, how do you say his last name?
Hülsbeck.
Thank you. He did the music. And Holger, I looked at some of his other feats, and he also did the R-Type port for the Amiga.
I see, which was, everyone loved that.
Yeah.
It's another one.
Yeah. And Chris, he did the music for Secret of Monkey Island and
for the Amiga version.
The Amiga version. Yeah. He also did the music for the Amiga version of Great Guiana Sisters.
Yeah.
So that was funny.
This guy is a star. The music in this game was top shelf.
Yeah.
I mean, is there a game that we've ever had better music in than this? This was off the charts, and every song, there was just song after song, and they were just great. You could just sit there. I just sat there on the music selection screen. I was like, let's hear that. It was just out. Yeah, it's a blowaway. I mean, well above where it could have been. They could have put in anything. Yeah.
So the game is it's basically, it's kind of, in my mind, I always think about things in terms of the NES and the Super Nintendo. So in my mind, this is kind of like a cross between, a simple shooter like Contra, the way that the enemies come at you, but it's also got some Metroid in it too. You turn into the spiky ball, but even just the way that you explore the levels, the combination of vertical and horizontal scrolling. That was kind of my first impression. Sven, what are your takeaways from Turrican II?
First, still the music. That is really one thing that is still really burned into my mind, and also I'm a really big fan. I also I backed the Turrican anthology campaign from Chris, and it's still that when I drive in my car, I put the CD inside it, and it's still one thing that really I remember the tracks. I forgot the later levels, how to move on in that, but that is one thing. And the other thing is, the first thing you have to do is jump to the left and shoot on the invisible stone and get some
get those goodies.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is the things I really remember.
Think about this. If you remember a game, I believe it was called Thexter. That's it was a jumping around shooting kind of game, and you were a robot and you could transform into a ship. It kind of, the look of it when I first played it, because I had this back in the day, and I didn't give it much time, I'll be honest with you, because it was so freaking hard. And I'd just walk across the screen and just get mauled. And I remembered this when I put this game in this time. I was like, okay, here we go. Let's give this a shot. You go about a foot, and then you just get swarmed by like a million things. I was just like, good God, how can you ever get past the screen? Yep. And I had to sit down and remember how the weapons work and whatnot. But what got me this time really getting into it was the exploring factor. I mean, you could go. The levels were monstrous in this. It's just like, when is this going to end? It just kept going. Like there's a bit at the first level where you come across, you're in this cave, and there's like this one of those snake creatures that comes out and breathes the fire. Well, heck, I thought, oh, there's the end boss. I'll take him out. And that's not even close.
You're not even close. Yeah.
I believe it.
And if you're not fast enough, the time runs out.
Yes.
Because it is so big. Yeah.
Yeah, that's my main, if I was going to look for a design flaw in this game, it's fine to include, you want to have lots of exploration in your games and stuff, but if you want to include that component, then don't include a time limit, because that just discourages me from wanting to explore it fully.
Well, the time limit, I wasn't good enough at this for the time limit to come into play. I'm not gonna lie to you, fellas. I'm old school, but I was no good at this. This was a very much a Nintendo type game. It reminded me a lot of Metroid or some of the games like that my brother used to play, and I used to sit behind him and go, "What the hell is that? I don't know I can't play that." This thing had a lot of awesome wrinkles. The weaponry was awesome. The creatures were awesome, and I love the fact that you could hold the button down to get that streaming gun and fire.
That was my favorite. I love it. It's like a garden hose.
Well, yeah, and and you have to have that skill, because you won't. It's hard to get off the first level unless you use that crazy, power, gun power. You have to be careful what weapons drop that you get, because sometimes you don't want scatter shot. You want the big fireball, and sometimes so that there's a lot of strategy in it, which, given time, I suppose eventually I might be remedially decent at, but as someone who doesn't play this type of game too often, I didn't possess the skills to go far, I'm afraid.
Yeah. There's 3 primary weapons. There's bounce, laser, and multiple.
Right.
My favorite was the scatter shot. I thought that was when I needed something more concentrated, I just charge it and turn on the hose. But
the problem is you couldn't move with the big, huge super hose. And so you had to I can't tell you how many times I'd sit and wait at a ledge and just wait for the last couple of 2 bats or whatever the hell those things were, just to fly over the ledge and just run into my stream, because I was afraid of them.
But I'll tell you one thing that makes this game awesome that is different than almost No, I don't want to say almost. I think every other platformer that we've covered for the Amiga, it's that enemies do not respawn.
Yes,
and
thank
that
God.
is such a blessing. You know,
It's the way it should be. You killed them, now they're gone.
Right.
It's the way it should be. This game reminds me of a game that someone put together that knew how to play a game. They knew level design, and they knew what people didn't like.
Yep.
They put everything in it that you did like, and they just left out the crap. The different weapons were cool. The different, the shield and all this stuff that you get was awesome. The way it was designed, where you could jump up and get hidden, play extra lives and whatnot. That was very Nintendo-y. It was very Nintendo-y. So when I looked and saw, this versions of this other games from Turrican have been ported to other machines, I wasn't the least bit surprised because they almost were meant to be there. And it was amazing they could have put this thing on the Amiga. It looked great. I thought it played smoothly. It was a good looking game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and of course the sound, like we said, was off the charts. So I mean, it was a total package game in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and the voices, and it's like, one up.
Yeah,
I love those. bounce.
They had an accent that I could not quite place, but it was very strange.
That is a question that when I meet some of the guys maybe in the next time, who was the voice actor?
Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe it's
definitely ask him about that because we'd love to hear it on your next appearance on the show.
Yeah, sure.
Now, I did not get past the first stage of this. I died on the boss every single time.
You mean the big robot guy?
The chicken.
See, I didn't get that far.
The rabbit guy.
I got to the big, massive, walking, jumping robot in the cave where the stalagmites.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. The rabbit thing.
He crushed
It's like
me.
a jackrabbit.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I that's a chicken.
Yeah, I did say chicken. I don't know what I was talking about.
Chicken, bunny. They're exactly the same. But he was impossible. Right?
Yeah.
And so finally I went and I found the code that you could type in. I guess everyone knows this code. You can go to the menu and hit escape a couple times and type in a number and then hit escape again. I guess this is pretty well known. And so you could have unlimited lives. And let me tell you something. I almost still ran out of lives trying to kill this guy. And I thought to myself, only the most skilled players could even get off this first level. Now, if I sat there for, when you're in school, you've got unlimited time. You could come home from school every day and play a game over and over to get better at it. The high school level kid, I may have been able to do it, but I don't know how I could ever get past it.
It's yet another thing that we run into with so many of these Amiga games is that the difficulty curve is just so steep compared with a lot of the console games that I grew up playing. Like Contra, you can get past the first level of Contra, without too much difficulty. But, this game, Zool, these games are just they're so hard, and I get that the developers wanted to create something that people wouldn't beat too easily.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah, mission accomplished.
I mean, even like I said, the first level. I mean, I've considered myself a decent player, and if you could just get instantly mauled. And like Sven said, if you don't have the extra goodies and the invisible block, you're screwed.
Yeah,
you're gonna get mad.
Now, go ahead, Sven.
Yeah, you can beat him. You have this weapon when you can move like an eagle. You get down and then you are, you know what I mean. This when he goes, he would irresistible when you go. You can't defeat him when you put the Turrican into this small wheel. Then he moves around like an. It looks like an eagle, like Sonic the Hedgehog when he.
Right. Yeah. You know what you're talking about.
And then you have this weapon which makes all the explosions.
No, the grenades.
The grenades and not the grenade.
No, there's like a smart bomb that you can.
Yeah, smart bomb.
I got
you.
So
a smart bomb, and then it's possible to beat him, but it's very hard.
Was the key.
But so I'm very glad that you said that you have really big problems to beat the first level. But as you wrote me that, hey, we want to talk about Turrican II, and as the first thought was, oh shit, I was not so good, and that would be so awkward. Tell them then I'm not so good.
Well, you're in good company.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
How far can you usually get on this, Sven? I mean, can you get off the first level?
I think with a bit of training, I would get off the first level, but not so much for maybe second level. And that's because it's as you said before. It's today. I don't know really much video games you can die. You have save point everything, but in Turrican, you have your lives and then play again from there.
They're unforgiving. You know, and the sad thing is, of course, like I usually do when I stink at a game, I got on trusty YouTube and watched someone play through it, and there's so much awesome crap in this that I was licking my chops to get to. I mean, there's plus there's the shooter levels which look great, and of course I just kind of listened to the music on them. I hadn't went through and listened to all the music, but I wanted to watch it, see what it looked like in conjunction with the actual level. I mean, it looked so cool. There are so many cool levels, but I mean, it's too hard to get off the first level, and I don't consider myself a complete suck bag. I mean, I'm a decent hand, but I mean, it was brutal on me, and I'm assuming that the people that enjoyed this the most were just really, really hardcore gamers. You know, I mean, I've played Metroid, so I could get off the first level. You know, so I'd say difficulty. Yeah, it was a little much for me.
Today you call it Dark Souls, and
right. They still make games that are hard, but they've become niche. You know,
sure.
People know what they're getting into when they sign up. There were some console conversions of Turrican II. The Genesis got a port, or the Mega Drive, and the Game Boy, and they were produced by a group called the Code Monkeys for Accolade. Which, you know anything about Accolade?
They're not synonymous with quality.
No, they're quite the opposite.
They've done a few good. No, they did a couple decent titles. I mean, I'm not going to kill them fully, but yeah.
They were another company that tended to do. They did a lot of conversions, some good, some.
Have you played either one of you guys played the Game Boy version or the Genesis version of this?
The Genesis version. This was the version that was called Mega Turrican, or no, it was Turrican for the okay. There was a port. It was called Turrican on the Genesis, and that was also released at. There was this Jean-Claude Van Damme movie,
right?
Lundgren, and then they make the crazy conversion to.
Right. So they developed Turrican II. And they were getting ready to release it, but then at the last minute, Accolade was like, "Hey, we just got the rights to Universal Soldier. Let's make this a Universal Soldier game," and that's what it became.
I've sadly seen that movie.
Yeah.
I was a big Van Damme fan back in the day, and never played the game though.
I think it was the first U.S. movie from Roland Emmerich.
Oh, okay.
I think it was the first. Yeah. It's really funny that the most patriotic movies were for the US were made from a German.
From a German dude, yeah.
That is true.
Now those ports did cut the shoot 'em up stages, so you're not getting the full Turrican experience, and
those stages looked pretty sweet.
But as we've discovered, we're not getting the full Turrican experience because we cannot progress past.
I wonder
the first
if they're easier.
So, yeah, I would hope that they would be easier. So Aaron, what was your score on this guy?
I hate to say it, it's so low. 14,900 points.
Well, I did manage to beat your score. I ended up with 34,200.
Oh, I don't feel too bad. I thought you were going to really mash me.
No.
Now, let me ask you a question. Because you're an old Super Nintendo guy, they had something called Super Turrican?
Yeah, I think that was the Super Nintendo port, but I don't know I never played it.
You never played it? Did you ever play it, Sven?
Yes, but I don't know. I think I was more into Super Turrican II. I think I played this more than the first version.
I was just wondering if the fella that did the music did the other Turricans, or because I mean, boy, I don't know what all he did, but it was out. I'll have to look into his work, because this one, like I said, this game, it had its problems. It was awesome, but it was too hard. But the music, it makes it worth it. I mean, Alex said I saw that they'd marketed a CD of this stuff, and I could definitely see why people would pick it up, because that was by far what I took away from it the most, was the outstanding music.
Yeah, I think it was also Chris who made this music on these Super Nintendo versions. So I think that was also really because I have the possibility to talk a lot to Chris. He lives in the United States, but right now 2, 3 times, 4 times a year he is in Germany, and I have the really pleasure to meet him sometime. I think this year I seem Chris Hülsbeck more like my parents.
Wow.
And it's really funny because he really tries to get everything about the possibility of those machines back in these days to create the perfect sound and the perfect music for this. So you hear that he really invest times and his creativity to create the best music for the
definitely, because and what I liked about it is from watching the playthroughs is that the music, aside from the fact that it's brilliant, it matches up to the level quite nicely as to what's going on. And also what I like is that usually in a when you're listening to one of these songs, you get to a point and it loops. His songs would go into almost another song. It was a crazy tangent.
Yeah, it would modulate and go into.
I just love that. Then the bosses would come up. They kind of had their own little themes when they came up, which was awesome. I don't remember hearing the same songs even twice. I'm not sure I heard the same songs more than once. I mean, and so he had to have put on a lot of tracks on this. And you could tell this guy was a labor of love. He really went to work on it. Yep. So if you see him again, tell him thumbs up from the Amigos.
And ask him, next time you talk to him, ask him if he might like to come on the show, because we'd love to interview him.
Sure, I can ask him. I'm in touch with him. So,
beautiful. Or at least heap praise upon him. So we can applaud. But I'm sure.
I can get you in touch with him. Also, for him, it's also easy because he lives in San Francisco, I think.
Oh, is he still in the industry?
Yes. He works also for video games, but he also makes his collection here. This year he released the piano collection. It was also a Kickstarter campaign. Right now he's into some projects. Yeah, he's really still into the business. Working. A lot of them are still in the business from some Turrican or Super Turrican. I think Frank Matzke, who makes some of the graphics for Super Turrican II and other. He's one of the heads of Bethesda here in Germany. Yes, and also the head about Turrican, Manfred Renz. He's very shy. You don't get him for interviews or something like this. But he still makes games from Nintendo 3DS, and so a lot of them are still in business. Yeah.
Well, wow. I'm not surprised, given the skill level of this particular work, that they're still around. It doesn't surprise me a bit.
Yeah. Sven, any final thoughts on Turrican II?
My final thoughts is I hope there will be a remake or something like this, or maybe they make a new version. The big problem is that they don't know who owns the rights right now. There's a little bit stress about it. But I hope they will make sometimes a new version, because this is one of the titles that I still remember the most from this part of games I played on the Amiga. Sadly, I don't really did get much further than second or third level, but it's so cool.
If they make another version, I suggest simultaneous 2-player.
Yes.
Now that would be awesome. sort of like a Contra type thing,
and possibly a level select at the beginning of that.
Or a difficulty switch. And you need something on Brain Dead for us poor pathetic old guys.
Well, thank you, Sven, for joining us on this episode.
Yeah, thanks, Sven. We appreciate it.
And I'd like to thank our sponsors. we now have a Patreon page. If you want to support the Amigos for as little as $1 a month, you can head on over to patreon.com/Amigos podcast. And I'd like to thank some of our sponsors. We have O'Brien's Retro and Vintage. They're an online shop at Norway that sells all kinds of retro and vintage stuff. And I'd like to thank Brent Dowdy, who is, in addition to being a board game designer and VR enthusiast, he is also Aaron's brother.
Pain in my butt.
So we thank them, and we thank you for listening. And next week, as we mentioned at the beginning of the show, it is Thanksgiving here in the States, so we'll be doing family things here. But we do have an episode in the can. We've recorded an interview with Sven where
we're giving thanks for Sven,
right? Where we do a deep dive into Cinemaware, its history, what Sven's doing there, the current Cinemaware projects that are being released
that you need to back immediately,
right? That you need to get, and the future of Cinemaware. So if you're interested in that, and I have a feeling that you might be, please give that a listen. All right, well, for Sven, I'm John.
And I'm Aaron.
Until next time,
Adios.